Hey there guys, so there's a lot to talk about in this video, so let's get stuck into it. So, guys, I have observed over the years, and I think a lot of other people on here have observed this too, that when you have a fighter in boxing, and not just a fighter, this applies to trainers too, but in particular when you have a fighter, when this fighter is constantly pointing the finger at others, constantly accusing everybody else in the sport of being on PEDs, accusing this guy of taking steroids, accusing that guy of taking steroids, constantly calling for stricter drug testing, for Olympic style drug testing, for blood testing, and all that shit that they're constantly advocating, saying that people need to be tested all year round, random, people need to be tested all the way through their training camps, not just on the night of the fight, and all that stuff. I've observed, and other people have observed too, that those are usually the fighters that have something to hide. The ones who are constantly pointing the finger, the ones who are constantly making accusations, constantly out in the media talking about steroid use and drug use. People, you know the people I'm talking about. You got your Billy Joe Saunders, your Floyd Mayweather, your Tyson Fury, so many others. Your Dillian White, he's another one who does it. And probably the most prolific guy who does this is Tony Bellew. He is a guy who, for as long as I can remember, for years, points the fingers at people. When somebody fails a drug test, he acts as if this person should be banned from boxing for life and stuff like that. He just gets really militant about it. Talks about how fighters need to be tested all the way through their training camps, and they should do blood tests and this, that, and the other. He's always talking about drug testing. This guy always talking about steroid use, always accusing people. Well, I mentioned how it's usually that type of person who has something to hide. Well, about a week ago, I was reading some sport headlines, and I came across an article which made me laugh. So Tony Bellew, throughout this entire training camp for this Oleksandr Usyk fight, he's been complaining and whining like a little bitch over the fact that he's being strenuously drug tested. Think about this, guys. Think about this. He's been calling for stricter drug testing for fighters. He's been accusing everybody in the sport of being on PEDs and saying that they should be fucking euthanized or banned for life and shit like that, calling for real harsh prison sentences for these people who take steroids and saying that we need to do everything we can to root out doping in sport. He's complaining about being drug tested, saying that it's messing up his training camp. He's complaining about being drug tested, claiming that it's affecting his sleeping pattern somehow. Now, maybe it is affecting his sleeping pattern. Maybe it is affecting his training camp. You know what? I don't care. Tough shit. You asked for this shit. You've been calling for stricter fucking drug testing protocols for years. You've been pointing the finger at everybody, accusing every fucking Eastern European fighter who comes into the country to fight a British fighter, accusing them all of being on steroids and saying that if a fighter takes PEDs, no fight on their resume even matters. You were talking about how Carlos Takam got knocked out by Derek Chisora, and you were saying it's the first time he's ever been knocked out because I don't count the Povetkin knockout because Povetkin 2 years later failed a drug test, and all this stuff doesn't matter. And you're making accusations at Dominic Ingle in his gym and all that, in regards to what happened to Billy Joe Saunders, and because you're Eddie Hearn's boy, you're on Sky, you'll never talk about Dillian White's PED test, or you'll never talk about Kid Galahad's PED use. You'll just talk about outsiders, anybody who's a threat to Eddie Hearn and his company. So you got this guy Tony Bellew, man. Is Tony Bellew got something to hide? Is he on steroids? Because it would make sense. I mean, if Tony Bellew was taking steroids, that would explain why he went from not even being able to stun or hurt people like Nathan Cleverly and Mateus Masternock. But before you guys comment, and say, oh, he wasn't at Cruiserweight. Yes, he was. Those fights were at Cruiserweight, okay? When he moved up to Cruiserweight, he fought he fought Nathan Cleverly again. He fought guys like Mateus Masternock. And that other dude he fought, I can't remember the guy's name, that went to the 10th round against him. And he couldn't even hurt these guys. He couldn't drop these guys. He had no power. He had no more power than he had at light heavyweight. You know, he also got dropped by Ilunga Makabu, still had a glass chin, but all of a sudden, he went from that to being able to knock out fucking David Haye. This guy couldn't even take punches from domestic level fighters like Oval McKenzie and, you know, all these other guys. Who was the other dude that dropped him? I can't remember. There was another guy, a guy that dropped him twice. And, you know, he was struggling against guys like Nathan Cleverly and Mateus Masternak, getting knocked the fuck out by Adonis Stevenson. He went from that to all of a sudden being able to spark cruiserweights and heavyweights. David Haye, one of the biggest punchers from cruiserweight to heavyweight in British boxing in recent years, couldn't even put a dent in Tony Bellew. Now, where did that durability come from, guys? Where did that punching power come from? How was he able to knock out David Haye? You know, how was he able to knock Ilunga Makabu out cold? Where did the power come from? And where did the sudden chin and durability come from? What did it just magically appear overnight? You guys tell me. But this is a guy who I'll just leave you guys with this. This is a guy who is very, very overzealous when it comes to accusing people of taking steroids. Okay, where have we seen this before? Okay, what didn't Tyson Fury do the same thing, accusing Anthony Joshua and everybody else, everybody who was a threat to him, Deontay Wilder, Klitschko, Povetkin, all these other people, accusing them of being on steroids while he himself was taking nandrolone, and so was his cousin, which is an anabolic steroid, by the way, and they got away with it. You know, they got away with murder there. Let's be real. I mean, Billy Joe Saunders had a lot to say about Canelo and Triple G in regards to PEDs, and, you know, was constantly yelling steroid accusations and that. Well, it turned out he himself was on a very powerful PED, and of course he had an excuse pre-planned. You know, it was some sort of nasal spray that he used apparently. You know, that's the cover. They all have a cover, don't they? And I'm pretty sure that Tony Bellew has his own cover for if he gets caught. But yeah, you know, where did Tony Bellew's sudden punching power all of a sudden magically come from? You know, where did his sudden granite chin, where he's able to take punches from David Haye, where did that come from? Yeah, I mean, you can't use weight as an issue, guys. You can't use that as an excuse. Okay, because the Mateus Masternak fight, the Nathan Cleverly rematch, and that other fight that went 10, they were at cruiserweight, guys. Okay, he fought at cruiserweight several times and had no power and had no chin. So you guys tell me, is Tony Bellew on steroids? If he's not on steroids, what? And if he's truly this, you know, real upstanding citizen, this anti-steroid guy, and this, you know, Mr. Virtuous, Mr. Perfect. You know, if that's the case, then why is he complaining about strict drug testing during his training camp for Usyk? What has he got to hide? Tell me, what has Tony Bellew got to hide here? And I'm sure there are some scousers that are going to see this video and are going to complain and whine and act as if Tony Bellew is virtuous, you know. Oh, don't you be saying stuff about our kid Bellew. Our kid Bellew would never take steroids. Suck my dick. He doesn't like steroids. I mean, like this guy's some kind of amazing sportsman who would never put his opponents at risk. I mean, because he didn't say that he wanted to beat Nathan Cleverly so bad that he cripples him and that he can't fight again. You know, he didn't say stuff like that, did he? He's never talked about wanting to batter fuck out of his opponents and wanting to drill his fist through their heads and stuff like that. He's never said that he thinks people should be hung if they take steroids. You know, this is a sportsman. This is such a virtuous individual, isn't it? You know, this is not a guy that you'd put past. I mean, this is not a guy that could ever do anything wrong in his life, is it? This guy's just perfect. He's just virtuous. Do me a fucking favour, man. Seriously, the hypocrisy here is shocking. I mean, if I was to come out and accuse somebody of being on steroids and advocate for stricter drug testing and then complain about stricter drug testing when it's done to me, I'd be a complete fucking hypocrite. So please, guys, instead of just calling me a hater and just being a little fanboy, little bitch coming on the video crying and complaining over the fact that I'm making an accusation here, I'm only doing what he does. I'm only holding him to his own standard. And if he knocks out Oleksandr Usyk, man, I mean, that's gonna be funny, man. And then there needs to be some questions asked, because Usyk has taken punches from guys like Briadis and Hook and Glavatsky and Michael Hunter, and what wasn't even phased. So if Tony Bellew's suddenly developed even more punching power to win this fight by knockout, man, that's incredible. It really is. And wow, was Tony Bellew on steroids? Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching.